After a quick remark on Twitter, I decided to make a sanding blow. Now, a sanding blow is a great little tool to smooth out 3D prints. Printed the first one, way too stiff. So back to the design board, did the calculations, calculated the flex, tested that flex, and printed the vinyl version. Here it is. Let me show you how I did it. Billy Rubin on Twitter, Billy Rubin Make, look her up, she's interesting. Send me a picture of this sanding bowl. Immediately somebody else tweeted, okay, snapshot, make one piece 3D printed. So I did, and I printed it and made it. Nah, it didn't work, it was way too stiff. So then I decided to actually do some testing first before making the full product. So made a copy of the thing, and took one leg, made a copy of that, did some calculations on how stiff it should be and how, if you're pulling with 4 kilos or 5 kilos, how much deflection should be expected. Did all that, put it into the slicer. I used an infill of 50 because it needs to be fairly stiff. And then printed it out. Here we go, experiment time. Printed this thing as the sandbow, but it is way too stiff. No, it's too thick and it's too stiff. There's just no flex, or at least not enough for what we want. So I printed out a sample, and according to the calculations, it should bend something like 2.5 centimeters with 50 Newton. So let's zoom in a little and see what happens. I've got this nice little fishing scale, and we'll pull and see what the result is. So 2.5 is about 6 kilos flex, and also the clamp moves a little bit. So yeah, 6-7 kilos. So it's not completely as calculated, but it comes pretty damn close. Yeah, I think that's more than enough. And also, this amount of flex feels about right for what it's intended, not this huge thing. Okay. The other thing I did was I printed out the clamping mechanism for the belt, and I'm using a 25mm wide belt here. And of course this will be a wing nut because it's going to be on the inside, so you can tighten it up like this. But the thing that I was worried about is if the clamping force is enough. So I clamped it. I screwed it down with a thing. I couldn't get the right wing nut, but even when it's fairly loosely tightened, I still can't get the belt out. Okay, so that works as well. So all in all, the clamping mechanism works, the flex is right, and now we'll just need to wrap all those things into a single model. We wanted 250 wide, so move the mirroring point 125, copy, boom, done. Nice, that was quick. Oh man, I'm so fast on this thing. Okay, I speeded up 500%, but put the handle in, make sure that it's centered, the right width. Oh, what is that? Okay, that's the right width. And here we need to get the clamping mechanism to fit both sides. So that clamping geometry, we will position that there, And there we go, it's in place. Now we need to add a few fillets because there's stress points there, so that needs to be rounded, otherwise it'll crack very quickly. So that's that. Oh, the holes need to be centered nicely. The thing is 25 millimeters wide, so the hole is now centered. Put the square in. That's of course the square that's needed by the carriage bolt, because it has a square ending under the head. Now we make a surface for the washer and the nut, wing nut if we're using a wing nut. I couldn't find one yet, but I'll find it. Place that in the right position. Okay, now we add some more fillets, because again these are stress points, especially in the corner, so that needs to be a nice smooth shape. Now we mirror that one to the other side. We're taking everything, including the holes, and there we are. All we need to do now is add the fillets to make it nice and rounded everywhere, and again relieve the stress points. Okay, let's add some chamfers to make it look a bit better and give the handle a little bit more of a handle feel instead of just a rectangular square block. And we do the same with the sides, chamfering all the sides. Make rounded top just because it makes it look nicer. That corner is a bit too small, so I'll make it a bit bigger, and I think the chamfer on top of the top handle is a bit too big, so let's reduce that as well. That looks better. Okay, now we need to add logo. Oh, upside down and backwards. So flip it around again, just the depth, and we're done. Okay, so that's the overall shape. All we need to do now is get it printed. So let's export it as an STL. Of course, I should export this to an empty directory so you can't see all the STLs that I've got in this particular directory, but come on, I trust you guys. After I printed this, I realized that I made a mistake, because I had the print settings, the startup settings, still set for an experimental nimble, not the standard nimble, so it's extruding way too much, so over extruded a bit. I can't print it again because I don't have any PETG left, but it flexes nicely, and the disadvantage of that is that the gap here is a bit too narrow to get the sanding belt fitted properly or easily, but it will go. I just tested it and it will work. So all in all, let's put it together. I measured out, I have a whole pile of sanding belts, and I just ripped it in half and got the right length. And measuring, I got 35.5 millimeters, 355 millimeters. 35.5 centimeters. Okay, so anyway, let's put this together quickly. Although because of the over extrusion, quickly is not really happening. Now, the length of that belt, of course, can be varied depending on how much tension you like in your sanding belt. Because I'm pushing down at the same time. So this is the belt. You can see it flexes nicely. Now, again, depending on how tight you want this first bit to be, you can, of course, make a little bit shorter belt. But this is about a nice size, I think. And I love the way it flexes. It really works properly. Okay, so now let's see how it sounds. I'm holding it here. I'm not sure if this, yeah. Is it focusing? I don't think so. Yeah, there we go. Yeah, okay. Clearly it is sounding because the whole thing is red. But it feels a bit wobbly while I'm sanding it. So maybe I just have to get used to how this stuff works, sanding bow works. This is the first time I'm trying this, so I think it needs to be tighter. But overall, one sanding bow. Done.